It's in their manuals. It's called perception management.
They worked for Reality Check Studios, a software partner of Vizart, or Visit, V-I-Z-R-T. That stands for Visualization in Real Time or Visual Artist. It's a Norwegian company that creates content for production management and distribution tools for the digital media industry.
You may not be aware, but you've probably seen Vizart's work. They were the ones responsible for the holograms on CNN during the 2008 election. Remember they beamed Jessica Yellen on stage? Here's one of the engineers discussing the technology.
And lately, toward the election on CNN, we incorporated the hologram being generated by Stats, our partners, and it comes into the studio looking as if naturally it's part of the scenery.
Here's the Stats guy.
A technology that you saw at CNN on election night, and what it is it's a virtual hologram effect that we're able to show either in the real world or in a virtual set.
Here's Jessica Yellen explaining it live.
There are 35 high-definition cameras ringing me, in a ring around me. I'm in the center, and they shoot my body at different angles, and I'm told that transmits what looks like an entire body image back there to New York.
Interestingly, the feeds were apparently dumbed down to create an effect similar to a science fiction movie that viewers would be more comfortable with. Beamed into CNN studio in under a second, creating an almost lossless holographic feed, live. And Ace Baker knows all about this technology, but at the same time, he's producing a film about fake video.
The official airplane videos look fake.
And there's all kinds of other stuff that he made up.
He categorically says that it's the gelatin art students that was they used to create the plane-shaped hole.
The efforts to cover up that, or discredit that conclusion about it being, a fake object rather than fake video.
We're talking about 3D image projection.
Yes.
An image projection or holograms or holographic technology, and gelatin's right at the centre of that.
While gelatin is ideal, photoconductive crystals are another recording material. Earlier in an interview I had with Andrew Johnson, I asked him if he knew anyone who spoke about this type of technology. He pointed me in the direction of Edgar Fouché.
When I was talking to Edgar Fouché, he told me about some of the stealth technology. He worked as a military contractor, and he worked in Area 51 actually, and he showed me the documents which essentially prove that. And he said that they used quasi-crystals, and he was talking about this back in 1998.
To this day, I'd be hard-pressed to explain to you the unique electrical, optical, and physical properties of quasi-crystals and why so much of the research is classified. Why is the U.S. Department of Energy and Ames Laboratory so vigorously pursuing research in quasi-crystals?
So the guy that was into them, who was quite a specialist, was a guy called Daniel Sheckman.
And in 1982, I have found a crystal, and then several crystals, but it had five-fold rotational symmetry, which was forbidden by the paradigm, by the rules that the International Union of Crystallographers created.
Dan Sheckman is an Israeli national. In fact, he's a prominent figure in the political movement of Israel. In his early days, he worked for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is where they claim they took the remains from the Roswell crash back in 1947. And there are plenty of other secret military projects going on at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
And then it took 2 years to decipher.
In 1984, a paper was published which marked the discovery of quasi-crystals, two distinctly different metallic crystals joined symmetrically together.
The work, by the way, was done at National Bureau of Standards, NBS, in Washington, where I spent my sabbatical.
Now, in the 80s, this was called the National Bureau of Standards. Now, we call it the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I found papers that listed military applications, but if you're not a member of academia or military, then you can't read them. Or you can pay $75 per PDF. So Dan Sheckman found these quasi-crystals while he was working at NIST during his sabbatical.
And lo and behold, this cannot be. It implies five-fold rotational symmetry.
Something Ed Fouché had been talking about 13 years earlier.
I've discovered that classified research has shown that quasi-crystals are used for high-energy storage materials, metal matrix components, thermal barriers, exotic coatings, infrared sensors, high-power laser applications, and electromagnetics. By 1986, several top-secret advanced studies were going on funded by DARPA.
For a couple of years, I was alone. I was ridiculed. I was treated badly by my peers and my colleagues. This is something new. That person expelled me from his group. He said, "You are a disgrace to our group. I cannot." He was standing on stages and published papers saying that Danny Shechtman is talking nonsense.
And then I saw a presentation which was done in 2012 by somebody at Imperial College, and they were talking about quasicrystals and how you could set them up in a material and you could make this material have a negative refractive index, which he essentially showed that this could be used to project an image from a surface, for stealth. That's essentially what he was talking about. I mean, how would Ed Fouché know that? He wasn't a physicist. He was a cryptographer, a technician.
If you can, you have to imagine these things repeating in 3 different dimensions.
I actually then later found that Daniel Shechtman won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2011 for, guess what, his work in quasicrystals.
It seems Dan Shechtman might have done something to get himself in the know. Here's an image with him and none other than Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's demonstrating for him his 5-fold symmetry, which was forbidden by the paradigm. I found many other PDFs with keywords like 3-dimensional and holographic, and all this seems to tie back to a company called SPIE, S-P-I-E, and the Directed Energy Professional Society. I also found many patents relating to this technology.
So the contractors that NIST hired to investigate 9/11 not only specialize in directed energy weapons and psychological warfare, but they've also collectively worked on advanced projection technology. This shows a direct connection between the alleged airplanes and the energy cover-up that's pointed out in the Key Tam case filed by Dr. Judy Wood.
Both Professor Reynolds and Dr. Wood's court case was dismissed, but the judge admitted to ignoring the law. So the system is basically rigged. Still, if the so-called truth movement wasn't suppressing this information, then maybe they could have gotten some media exposure and had a better chance.
I think it was January 22nd where they announced that they weren't going to hear the case. And early February 2010, Richard Gage, Stephen Jones, and so forth announced a worldwide press conference. That limited me from talking about it.
Yes, yeah.
Because it would be shut down immediately.
Why would they do that? Especially considering the many people who still demand a new investigation. Dr. Judy Wood did the investigation. If more of the public knew about it, maybe it wouldn't have been so easy for the judge to throw the case out.
If we had 1,000 people in the street out front, you would have had something different happen.
The Architects and Engineers group, that's what happened. If they brought up your name, your research, the court case.
This is the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. I recently interviewed Dr. Abraham Rodriguez, which you can find on my website. He's been right in the middle of the censorship by the truth movement. He also has a couple of videos exposing Richard Gage as the liar that he is.
I don't understand the seismographic data. I haven't studied it. I don't know. It's very confusing.
The truth movement is doing a good job keeping the truth moving. The fact is, these tax-free organizations that claim to be about truth have been ignoring a huge amount of evidence for the last 16 years, giving talks and making a lot of money. The truth movement won't even discuss the airplanes. The interesting thing is, a lot of people controlling the truth movement know all about this technology, and they're actively trying to cover it up.
Give us your background, some of the publications you've written for.
Sure. Let's see, Los Alamos National Lab. Article is Cold Nuclear Fusion. Principal investigator for the Department of Energy.
Amazing. So you've headed up investigations for the government before.
Yeah. Well, I've been around the block a few times.
So So Jones, I think, knew about all of those effects and was briefed on some of them as well, if he didn't already know. I'm pretty sure of that.
The cold fusion part of it. In fact, that was the title Paul Palmer and I gave to what we were doing, which is, we sometimes called it metal catalyzed fusion because the fusion occurs in metals. Fusion occurs in metals and metals and metals.
The connections that Jones has between the cold fusion experience that everybody can read about in Dr. Mallow's book, and with what's going on right now with the 9/11 situation, it's just a mirror image of him muddling up 9/11.
Eugene Mallow died. I didn't know that when I made my first film.
Oh, did you not? Oh, yeah. I became familiar with him and his work about a year before he died. I think they killed him basically because of Jones. Because I think that as soon as Jones came on the scene, Mallow would have smelled a rat. You know, he would have known. When Jones was talking about 9/11, Mallow would have known there was a connection between cold fusion and 9/11 straight away.